I was
As
like,
soon
saying
as
nothing.
they sing
Yeah.
him, I'll
Is it ready?
Okay.
Okay, let's give Tammie the
It's a third degree
stage
joke.
so we can learn from her wisdom. I'm gonna sit in your chair.
Okay. I have to tell you, I have really agonized over what to say. And what I thought that I was going to say in the very beginning, whenever Mandy put this before us, has completely changed. And so what I have decided to talk to y'all about tonight is grief. Are y'all shocked?
I was hoping
you would
they say go deep and go wide.
Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, but I'm not gonna focus on grief as when someone you love dies. I'm gonna focus on the grieving that we do when we have losses in our life. And when I got involved in Grief Share, I was all in because I could just see the value of giving people tools to learn how to deal with grief in a healthy way. And then my mother and my stepfather taught a grief class at a funeral home for over 10 years. And they didn't want to use Grief Share. They used this book by H. Norman Wright called Recovering from the Losses of Life. And I even made a little QR code for it, and I've got it, so if y'all want to get it, I'll just scan the little QR code. But this book is so good because it addresses losses that we really don't think about. And we all have losses. Losses in our life are inevitable. And we can look at those losses as something that's very negative, kind of like what you taught us in the beginning, Mandy, about stress. Stress doesn't have to be negative. It can be positive. It's difficult to recognize grief associated with loss when it's not a death. Because with a death, what happens? You have a funeral. You have a funeral, you have closure, you have a memorial, you have all these things to recognize that there has been this major loss and now we need to move on. But let's talk about some of the losses that we may have in our life. The most common being death. How about divorce?
Peace of mind.
I'm sorry?
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind, very good. What about a child leaving home? You know, that can leave a really big hole. Loss of job or your income. Maybe you choose to leave that job. I was hoping Heidi was going to be here because, you know, she took such a leap of faith in leaving her job, but it's still a loss. You know, she left behind a whole lifestyle. What about your health? You know, we're some of us are going through some really struggles with our health, and just like with you, you know, you've had some losses through that. It's been a time of grieving for you. What about the loss of a limb? I just heard, now I've been out of school for 45 years, and I just heard about a friend of mine that I went to elementary school with, junior high, high school, just had his leg amputated. You know, I can't imagine being my age and losing a limb. What about your home? Think about all these people that have lost their homes now. Look at, you know, what some of us have gone through, even with Beryl. And we may not have lost our home, but we have lost things that are gonna have to take time and energy to overcome, to rebuild. What about in a fire and all the things that you lose as mementos? I know I had a lot of friends when Rita came through, because I grew up and graduated from Fort Natchez. And it's in the part of Southeast Texas that's kind of like right on the edge of East Texas. And when Rita went through there, I had so many of my friends that lost all of their mementos from high school, their yearbook. And when somebody posts on media this isn't part of my talk, it just popped into my head, but when somebody posts on media, hey, I have a yearbook from 1979 and I don't want it anymore, does anybody want it? One of those people will inevitably, pop up, oh yes, I lost mine in Rita, I want it. I've seen that happen over and over again. What about rejection? Especially rejection as when we're younger.
Like friendships?
Friendships. What about if we apply for a job and we're rejected, we're looked over? What about a parent that rejects you? Abandonment. Those are all losses that we grieve over.
Lost myself for a while.
What's it?
Loss of self, like who I was.
And how did you feel? How did that make you feel inside, Amber? Empty. Right. And you grieved. Are you still grieving?
No.
Good.
Know
Okay.
myself again.
Loss of control.
How about loss of control? That's a big one too. In what instance? Give me an example.
Adult children?
Yes, I was reading, praying for adult children before I got here today. Seriously, I was. Just that, but not only that, it just seems like when you think you're, okay, this is supposed to happen, and then all of a sudden it's like,
Those expectations.
and it's more so self-expectations, and when you're not meeting those expectations that you place on yourself, you feel like you're out of control.
Yourself or others?
Both. Both.
Yeah.
But you have this picture that what's gonna happen, for
Yeah.
instance, and I'm gonna give you a real personal one. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
I got asked twice this past week, where's your husband? Like, I thought I'd be married with 5 adult children now, and I have none, but I would not have my house for my nieces and nephews to come to me, and another cousin, if I probably had my own family. So everything happens for a reason, but I had to grieve that a little bit.
Yes.
Like, okay, it didn't go as well. I could've got married, but, I mean, just whoever, right? But I had to grieve the ideas,
those
right?
things that didn't happen.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah,
a woman that is in my grief share group right now, and she lost her parents when she was very young. And she said, I am grieving all the things that are milestones in my life that my parents never got to come to. And I asked her, I said, what does that look like for you? How can you celebrate those things even now without your parents?
Right.
And one of another lady in our class, she said, oh, a friend gave me a memory box. And she said, she told me I need to write down every memory I can think of and put it in this memory box. And the other lady, she was like, oh, that's such a great idea. And I love the symmetry, of that group, much like we flow in here. Okay, how about early childhood losses? And I want to give you an example. My youngest daughter is 28 years old. When she was 2, maybe 2, I lost her pink blankie in the Walmart parking lot.
That is grief.
When your ESC building used to be Walmart. That's how long ago it was. To this day, this girl brings this up to me.
I'm gonna look for it.
In the balls.
And it's never, it never occurred to me how deep that loss was for her as a small child until I started reading and studying all of this and realizing that really impacted my daughter much more than I could have ever imagined that it could have. Her blankie.
And when you lost your pet,
Well, he almost. And that is something I'm going to come to in just a minute, called threatened losses. What may happen, but doesn't.
The what ifs.
The what ifs. Because that day that I came in here and had gotten that diagnosis about pumpkin, I was devastated. But it didn't happen. He's still with me. He was
Oh,
sitting
no
in my
way.
lap this evening.
I didn't
Right.
know that.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's, so I'm just treasuring every day that I have with him. But what about living in a dysfunctional family? You know, you lose out on so much of your childhood. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I had a father. I loved him. He loved me. He was a wonderful man when he was sober. But he took medication for a rheumatic heart, and plus he drank, and he was an insane person. He was a police officer in the town I grew up in, and he had caught his boss, chief of police, having an affair with another police officer's wife, and so every time he got drunk, he wanted to go kill his boss. Okay, I was 4th and 5th and 6th grade, and when that would happen, it would be my job to get the gun out of his hand and put it away, get him in the house, take his cowboy boots off. Mother would cook, we would get him to eat, and we would get him to sleep. But that happened more times than I can possibly account. And I felt like I didn't have a childhood because I had to be an adult. And when I turned 30, on my 30th birthday, I wanted to celebrate my birthday because I felt like I had been 30 years old since I was 10. You know, really. And I grieved that. Okay, so threatened loss. What about having a prodigal child that's lost? Maybe out there using drugs? You know, I have one. My oldest daughter, she's 45 this month. And she's still out there. And I have reconciled myself to the fact that unless there's a miracle, I have lost that relationship with her. I had it for a very short period of time, and then it was gone. And I've had to grieve that. And I know that there's gonna come a day, unless she gets off of the street, that I'm gonna get a phone call to come identify her body. But I can tell you this, I've already grieved that. Because I know it's inevitable unless God intervenes, and she's in his hands. What about an approaching hurricane? What's the fear and the grief that gets stirred up inside of you, knowing that you don't know whether your home's gonna be standing in a 24-hour period or not, okay? That's a threatened loss.
There's one coming.
Possibly. And then there's an ambiguous loss. When a person is alive in your life emotionally, but absent physically, such as a runaway or estranged child or sibling, or when a person is there physically, but absent emotionally, such as a loved one who has suffered a stroke or has dementia or Alzheimer's.
That's very sad.
That's an ambiguous loss. And sometimes, you know, there's people that grieve for a long time while they're taking care of their loved one. So, I was gonna ask y'all, can y'all think of any other losses? But being my girls, y'all just jumped right in and said some of those things, and those were great things to say.
I lost my car.
She's grieving her
Think
car.
about that.
I feel horrible.
I need to buy a new car.
I've lost a lot of money in the past 4 weeks. I'm just gonna tell you that.
And how do you feel about that?
I called a friend of mine and was like, I feel like I'm just bleeding money this month from all the different things that have happened, from the AC to the garage door to all the things. And I don't even know what the ER bill is gonna be, but that's something. I'll happily pay that. That was an interesting.
Every loss is important.
Yeah.
Every loss that we have is important. It is part of life and cannot be avoided. Losses are necessary. We grow by losing and then accepting the loss. Change occurs through loss. And that may be something you need to chew on. You know, through the losses that you've had, were there things that you could have done to maybe forestall that from happening? Or is there a change that you need to make in your life as a result of the loss? Growth occurs through loss. Maturity comes through loss. Life takes on a deeper meaning because of losses. The better you handle them, the healthier you will be, and the more you will grow. No one said that loss was fair, but it is part of life. Okay, so how are a few things that we can overcome this? And I'm gonna race through this because I'm running out of time. How can we overcome and survive our losses? We can plan ahead for a threatened loss, such as a child leaving home. I mean, what did you do? You had a focus. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna make something out of Brady's room, we're gonna do some changes, and, but you kinda have to make a plan sometimes when you know that's gonna be inevitable. One of the things that we can plan for with losses is insurance. And you know what? As responsible adults, I'm sure we probably all have the kind of insurance that we need, but not everybody does. I had a neighbor whose husband died a few years ago from cancer, never had life insurance. He had 2 children at home. That was inconceivable to me that he would not have life insurance. Life insurance is important. A career change or school, example of me going to school, anticipation of loss of income. Okay, so when Tim died, I knew that Social Security was not gonna last. I was gonna have to do something to change my career. Well, I didn't really have a career, hadn't ever graduated from college. So after 30 years, I went back to college, got my degree, started working at ACC, but I did all of those things in anticipation of all that income going away. And the month that my last Social Security check stopped is when I went full-time at ACC. It was just a God thing. So, but I had to make that decision, to make that change. Learn from the wisdom and experience of others. Seek wise counsel. Make sure you have a community to turn to. Like I read it together. And I know many of you have other support systems too, but it is so important for us to have a support system when we're going through losses in our life. You know, I'm so grateful for this group, like what you were saying, Hala and Tandra, that we can, you know, just put a prayer request out there, and I know my sunflower sisters are gonna be praying. Don't complain or become bitter. Instead of negative words and thoughts, replace your thinking with encouragement from Scripture or positive talks, like what you give to us, Mandy. You've been so good about giving us little treasures of podcasts and talks and things like that. Have a mentor or a role model. When you see what is possible in others, that in itself can give you hope. Cultivate a desire to continue to learn and grow. Just kind of goes along with everything that you've taught us, Mandy. You may have to stretch your mind and attitude to look at something in a new way. Get out of your comfort zone. Don't blame others. If your loss is because of the actions of someone else, forgive and trust God to deal with the offender. Playing the blame game only causes you to get stuck. We don't want to be stuck. Ask God to show you the purpose of your loss. God has a purpose in every aspect of our life, and He will show you that purpose if you ask. Find joy in the small moments. Be flexible and adapt to new situations. Have faith in God. And I made some scriptures for y'all to put wherever you want.
And they're laminated.
I laminated them and put a little sticky thing. All you have to do is pull
Oh,
this little thing
wow.
off, and you can put it on your mirror. I told my grief share group. I have 2 going on right now. I had told my grief share group that I wanted them to take these scriptures and eat them every day like a vitamin. And I said, the best way for you to do
Every 8
that,
hours.
That's good.
Or a painkiller.
every
That's funny.
the
4
best way
hours.
to do these is
As
have it
needed.
in front of you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because when you have it, so put it on your mirror in the bathroom or on your refrigerator or somewhere
Thank
where
you.
you can
Yeah, thank
have these great encouraging words from God.
Put this in Sasha's bathroom on her mirror too.
Give her a
I was gonna say,
hand,
we
ladies.
need multiple.
Way to
Yeah.
go.
Two of them.